Welcome. My name is Mark Fitzgerald Wilson, Executive Director of Zoellner Arts Center located here at Lehigh University. This moderated conversation is called Return to the Root, Exploring Racism Through Dance. Before we get started with our guests, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Bill Hunter, Lehigh University representative to the United Nations. Welcome, Bill.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thanks very much. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. Maher Nasser, Director of the Department of Global Communications Outreach Division, which includes the General Assembly mandated outreach program on slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, as well as the NGO Relations and Liaison section, which is a really critical partner of ours and has been for more than 16 years. Mr. Nasser has worked for the UN for 32 years, including posts in Vienna, Cairo, Amman, Jerusalem, and Gaza, where he's held positions with the UN Department of Global Communications, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, and the UN Office of Drugs and Crime. On a personal note, I am proud to call Maher a colleague, mentor, and friend. His unequivocal support for NGOs at the UN has paved the way for many new opportunities for Lehigh and NGOs around the world. In particular, I give him great credit and thanks for his stalwart commitment to youth empowerment on a global scale, and at Lehigh, where he has often given of his time to speak to our student groups, inspiring them to rise up, project their voices, and live lives of global impact. Maher, please know that your motivating words and deeds reach far beyond the walls of the United Nations. Thank you for joining us today, and Maher, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am pleased to welcome everyone to today's discussion, and I would like to thank Lehigh University for today's initiative that brings together the university's Zoellner Arts Center and the United Nations Outreach Program on Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, housed in the Outreach Division, as Bill just mentioned. Lehigh has a long association with the United Nations. In 2004, Lehigh University became the 6th university in the world to attain accreditation as a United Nations non-governmental organization associated with the department. In 2008, Lehigh started the world's first UN Youth Representative Program that was soon followed by others, and we're very proud of it and the successes it has achieved. Today, Lehigh is a leading member of the United Nations Academic Impact. I would like to thank today's co-moderators, Mark Fitzgerald Wilson, Executive Director of the Zoellner Arts Center, and Dr. Terry Ann Jones, Lehigh University Director of Africana Studies, and guest speaker, Mr. Rafael Palacios, Director of the Sankofa Danzafro. The 2021 theme of the United Nations Outreach Program on Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade is Ending Slavery's Legacy of Racism, a global imperative for justice. The theme reflects the global movement to end injustices whose roots lie in the slave trade. The theme highlights the importance of educating about the history of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, to bring about an acknowledgement of slavery's impact on the modern world and action to address slavery's long-lasting legacy of racism. Throughout history, the arts have given voice to protest and resistance. Dancers, writers, poets, musicians, artists have documented human rights abuses and urged us to imagine a world where such abuse does not happen. Through arts, we are moved to action. The arts have allowed for an expression of solidarity and compassion to travel over time and space, and to inspire and galvanize communities far and wide. Dance creates a language of its own, one that we can all understand, reminding us of the truth that we're all one family. Today, we will hear more about the language of dancers of the Sankofa Danzafro and how dance can show not only why racism needs to be ended, but also what a world without racism might be like. We're pleased to join together with you in the common project to end slavery's legacy of racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Maher. Thank you, Bill, for your kind remarks. I want to welcome you all to Baker Hall, located in Zoellner Arts Center. That's where I am right now. It has almost been a year since we've had live concerts here in our building. Like many of you who join us from across the globe for this conversation, our community has been thirsting for the return of live arts. As we wait to end this pandemic, as we try to reimagine how to build an anti-racist world, how to dismantle the legacy of slavery and the structure of racism and oppression, it is the arts that can help us with this start to have these difficult conversations. It is the arts that can help us get through all of this. We are happy to connect this conversation with the UN's 2021 theme, Ending Slavery's Legacy of Racism, a Global Imperative for Justice. Before we dig into this conversation, I want to take this moment to share with you some of the magic of Sankofa Danzafro. We will watch a short clip of their work, City of Others. Let's roll the clip. I would like to welcome to our virtual stage, Dr. Terry-Ann Jones, Director of Africana Studies at Lehigh University. Welcome, Terry-Ann.
Thank you, Mark.
I would also like to welcome Artistic Director of Sankofa Danzafro, Rafael Palacios, and please also welcome his translator, Monica Delgado. Welcome, Rafael. Welcome, Monica.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for being here with us. And let us get started. And as I was looking at your work, and as I look at you as an artist, I think it'd be important for everyone to understand your story. Every artist has a story. Could you tell and share with our folks here your story?
Todo artista tiene una historia. Me gustaría saber algo de esta historia, de cómo se conectó con su arte. ¿Cuál es su historia?
Bueno, primero que todo, quiero agradecer este espacio que nos están brindando para amplificar nuestra voz.
First of all, I'd like to start by saying I'm very grateful for the space that you have given us to amplify our voice.
Y para responder la pregunta, yo puedo empezar contándoles que mi papá, un campesino de Chocó, tuvo que venirse para la ciudad de Medellín para estudiar y para tener oportunidades laborales y se convirtió en profesor.
So my story begins with my father, who was a farmer in El Chocó, state or department in Colombia. And when he traveled to Medellin, he migrated to the city of Medellin, a large city, searching for education and work.
En la escuela donde él enseñaba, él tuvo la iniciativa de iniciar un grupo de danza y cuando yo empecé a estudiar, tuve la fortuna de integrar este grupo.
He eventually became a school teacher, and in that school, he also started a dance company. I was fortunate enough to join that dance company and continue with it.
A través de la danza, entonces yo pude cultivar mi herencia africana, pero también pude entender el mundo que me rodeaba desde esas culturas afrodescendientes.
Through dance, I was able to learn and understand my African descent and legacy, also learn how to communicate through dance.
Yo empecé entonces cuando tenía 6 años, hoy tengo 52 años y todavía sigo motivado bailando.
So I started when I was 6 years old. Today I am 52 years old, and I am still very excited about my dance.
That's great to hear.
Why did your company choose to use the name Sankofa Danzafro? And what do those words mean in Colombia?
¿Por qué su compañía escogió el término Sankofa Danzafro? ¿Y estas palabras tienen algún significado en Colombia?
Bueno, Sankofa es una palabra de origen africano que significa regresar a la raíz, pero también es una filosofía que nos invita a conocer el pasado, comprender el presente y poder elaborar pasos firmes hacia el futuro.
Sankofa is an African word that means to return to the roots, but also is a philosophy which invites us to know our past, understand the present, and build a future with firm steps.
A mí me pareció muy importante que mi compañía, mi corporación de danza se llamara de esta manera, porque entonces nos invita a conocer las filosofías africanas, pero también llena el vacío histórico que ha dejado la modernidad entre África y las Américas.
I thought it was very important for my company, our company, to use this word to understand where we come from, the African philosophy, but also how it applies to today's modern world.
And I can actually connect to that to myself. It seems that a lot of folks across the globe have been talking about how we can reconnect with our African roots itself. And I can see how that has actually has even connected with the globe itself.
Veo la importancia de este término porque hoy en día, si nosotros estamos tratando de volver a nuestras raíces, y es algo que se debe ver globalmente.
De acuerdo.
I agree.
To many people around the world, in the United States and Western Europe, for example, Colombia is an enigma. Can you share your perspective of how Colombia is today compared to when you were growing up?
Para muchos en Estados Unidos y en Europa, Colombia es un enigma. Comparta con nosotros su perspectiva sobre Colombia hoy en comparación a su niñez.
Sí, yo creo que esta pregunta es bastante dolorosa, porque en mi juventud nosotros estábamos muy temerosos de la historia que inició con los carteles de la droga y toda la violencia que en ese momento existió en el país.
Yeah, this is a very important and relevant question. Back when I was growing up, we were living very scary times when the drug cartels were had such a strong influence in our country.
Pero en estos tiempos actuales, mi hijo lloró mucho cuando el país votó para decir no a los procesos de paz.
But today, actually, my son cried a lot when our country voted against the peace talks.
Porque definitivamente la guerra es un gran negocio y es un negocio que no lo hace un solo país, lo hace también en complicidad con países potencia del mundo.
Because definitely war is a business, and it's a business of powerful countries in the world.
Y en este sentido, siempre los que van a sufrir más son los pobres, los pueblos, las etnias, esas personas que han estado oprimidas por tantos siglos.
And definitely those who are going to suffer the most from these wars are the poorest communities, the minorities.
Hay mucho por hacer en este país y Colombia no es un enigma solo en el exterior. Incluso para nosotros los colombianos, Colombia es un enigma.
There's a lot of work that has to be done in this sense, and Colombia actually is not only an enigma in the world, but also here for us.
It seems to me, as I hear you speak, that this is also one of those connections to the legacy of slavery and oppression, the tools of war. What are your thoughts on that?
Veo que también hay una conexión con el legado de la esclavitud y de la opresión. ¿Qué opina acerca de esto?
Definitivamente, porque hay una élite que le interesa continuar la guerra, porque a través de la guerra puede apropiarse de los territorios en donde los antiguos esclavizados viven hoy en día.
This is very true because I believe there is an elite that is attempting to perpetuate this war, to continue it because it benefits them.
Es una forma para nosotros, los afrodescendientes, en la que se ha transformado la esclavitud hoy en día.
It's how today, for us Afro-descendants, it's a new form of slavery, how slavery has evolved.
Well, talking about wars and what happens with folks who are being displaced, recently we see in the news that there's been a Venezuelan refugees have been coming to your country. So as an Afro-Colombian native, what impact does the current Venezuelan refugee crisis have on your community and on your art?
Relacionado con el tema de la guerra, en el mundo vemos en las noticias la situación en Venezuela. Entonces, acerca de eso, como afrocolombiano, ¿qué impacto tiene la situación de los refugiados venezolanos en su comunidad y su arte?
Bueno, yo creo que esta pregunta está muy atada a la respuesta anterior, y es que la instrumentalización de la situación del pueblo venezolano para gobernar a través del miedo ha sido una de las fórmulas más exitosas de estos gobiernos.
I believe this question is tied to the previous question, the industrialization of the Venezuelan government and the way that they use fear to govern has affected these people in their country.
Nosotros no podemos olvidar que cuando hubo la bonanza petrolera, los colombianos iban para Venezuela a buscar una mejor vida.
We can't forget either that when the oil bonanza existed, many Colombians migrated to Venezuela in search of a better life.
Y nosotros como afrodescendientes entendemos la tragedia por la que ellos están pasando.
And us as Afro-descendants, we understand, we can empathize with the tragedy they are living right now.
Porque tener que salir de su hogar, tener que salir de sus territorios es la historia constante que hoy en día, a pesar de tantos siglos, seguimos viviendo.
Because having to leave their home, leave their land, is the same story that we, the Afro-descendants in Colombia, have lived for many years.
Entonces, en esa desgracia encontramos empatía y fraternidad con el pueblo venezolano.
This is where we find empathy and fraternity with the Venezuelan people.
Ahora bien, nosotros como corporación también hacemos parte de un programa que se llama la Red de Danza en convenio con la Alcaldía de Medellín.
Now, as a company, we are forming part of an organization called Red de Danza, or Web of Dance, which was created by the Medellin's government.
Y en este espacio lo que hacemos es trabajar con niños, niñas, adolescentes y jóvenes entre los 8 y los 20 años.
In this program, we work with kids and teenagers from 8 to 20 years old.
Y entonces allí llegan muchos niños venezolanos, niños desplazados, que quieren intentar con sus familias integrarse a esta sociedad de una manera digna.
In this program, we have a lot of Venezuelan kids and teenagers who are trying and wanting to integrate into our society with dignity.
Eso también transforma nuestra mirada en ese contacto humano.
This also transforms our outlook with this human contact.
This is the first in a series of events at Lehigh acknowledging the legacy of slavery and racism globally. How is the legacy of slavery and racism evident in your community?
Esta es una parte de una serie que la Universidad de Lehigh está haciendo para hablar del legado de la esclavitud. ¿Qué tan evidente es el legado de la esclavitud y el racismo en su comunidad?
Es muy evidente. La falta de garantía de los derechos humanos para las comunidades afrodescendientes se vive todos los días.
It's very evident in the absence of fundamental human rights that the Colombian government is denying our communities.
Las comunidades negras colombianas en sus territorios están carentes de hospitales, de escuelas, de colegios, de universidades, de alcantarillado, de viviendas dignas.
The communities of Afro-Colombians, in those communities, there's a lack of hospitalization, infrastructure, education, sewage system, highways, adequate housing.
Todo esto lo único que hace es que las comunidades negras entonces tengan que buscar salir de sus territorios y encontrarse como extranjeros en su propio país.
The lack of all of it does is it forces the Afro-Colombians to migrate, to leave their land and have to go into the cities where they end up being foreigners.
Ante un Estado que da la espalda, se hace el sordo y el ciego y no quiere enfrentar la situación de nosotros en el país.
Facing a government that is presenting to be blind and deaf, not recognizing us as citizens.
Las mayores tallas de desempleo están en los territorios afrodescendientes.
The largest population of unemployment is in the Afro-descendant territories.
Sin hablar de los líderes afrodescendientes que son asesinados junto con los líderes indígenas y campesinos todos los días en el país.
This is without mentioning the leaders, the Afro-descendant leaders, the farming leaders, and the indigenous leaders that are killed constantly in our country.
Así que los legados de la esclavitud en Colombia están vivos. Son unas heridas coloniales que todavía no terminan de sangrar.
So this legacy is very much alive today. It's a scar that is still bleeding.
We understand that the University of Antioquia has a degree in dance. Have your dancers applied, and what has been the result of that?
Sabemos que la Universidad de Antioquia ha establecido una carrera en danza. Sus bailarines han aplicado a este programa, ¿y cuál fue el resultado?
Sí, artistas de mi corporación aplicaron para obtener un cupo en la universidad, 3 bailarines y un músico.
Yes, 3 of our dancers and 1 musician applied to study at the university.
Alguien me dijo, Rafael, no quiero que pienses que esto es algo personal o en contra de Sankofa. Y yo me quedé pensando, ¿desde cuándo el racismo estructural no es personal? Pero para conciliar esta respuesta la voy a leer, para que la emoción no me gane y mi reflexión sea lo más clara posible. Cuando la Universidad de Antioquia responde una carta en donde nos afirma, en la convocatoria no se establecieron criterios de admisión diferenciadores en razón del perfil étnico de los aspirantes.
Someone once told me, Rafael, I don't want you to take this personal or that it's against Sankofa. And I thought about it. Since when is systemic racism not personal? So in order to gather my thoughts, I am going to read this answer so that my emotions don't take over my thoughts, and it's as clear as possible. When the University of Antioquia answers in a letter and stating, there aren't any differentiating criteria of admittance in the audition process based on the applicants' ethnicities.
No entendemos cómo, siendo Colombia el segundo país con más población negra en América Latina, la Universidad de Antioquia puede darse el lujo de eliminar en sus procesos de admisión y no valorar las especificidades que el conocimiento de origen afrodiaspórico ha construido por siglos, no solo para nosotros, sino para el resto de la humanidad.
Since Colombia is the country with the second largest population of African descent in Latin America, we don't understand how the University of Antioquia can afford to eliminate and not appreciate these specificities that the knowledge of Afro-diasporic origin has built during centuries, not only for us, but also for all of humanity. Have they forgotten that the non-Afro-descendant professors, perdón,
Sí, ahí terminaste. ¿Acaso se le olvida a esta universidad que los profesores no afrodescendientes que ellos alguna vez han contratado como profesores de danza afrocontemporánea fueron formados en esta técnica por nosotros en nuestra institución?
have they forgotten that the non-Afro-descendant professors they have hired to teach Afro-contemporary dance were trained in this technique by our company and institution?
Es así como la universidad, que debería ser un lugar que valore la diversidad cultural para construir equidad social y justicia cognitiva, nos sigue viendo y tratando como objetos de estudio y no como sujetos de conocimiento.
This is how the university, a place that should value cultural diversity in order to build social equity and cognitive justice, continues to see us and treat us like study subjects instead of characters with knowledge.
Este es un ejemplo de cómo la nueva colonialidad se apropia y valora los conocimientos de las mal llamadas minorías, con la condición de excluir a quienes producimos dicho conocimiento.
This is an example of how the current coloniality appropriates and values the knowledge of the badly named minorities in an attempt to exclude those who yield such knowledge.
Es imposible que me digan que no lo tome personal.
It's
Los
impossible.
bailarines y los artistas de Sankofa no son empleados, son mi familia.
It's impossible for them to ask me not to take it personal. The dancers and musicians of Sankofa are not my employees, they are my family.
Y con eso le respondo esta pregunta.
This is how I answer this question.
Thank you. And just so I understand correctly, were none of the dancers at all admitted?
Y quiero aclarar, ¿ninguno de los que aplicaron fueron admitidos?
Ninguno.
None of them.
Según la universidad, no sacaron el puntaje suficiente para ser admitidos en el programa.
And the explanation given by the university is that they didn't reach the score needed to be accepted.
Okay. How do you respond to this type of systemic racism?
¿Cómo responde usted al racismo estructural?
Como hombre afrodescendiente, como militante, como persona interesada en transformar la injusticia social.
As an Afro-descendant, as a militant, as someone interested in changing social justice.
Como artista. Entonces, trabajo para que las obras y para que cuando tenemos un escenario, nosotros podamos gritarle al mundo qué es lo que nos sucede.
As an artist, I use the stage to tell the world, scream at the world what we need.
Porque este problema no es solo de nosotros. Este problema se tiene que solucionar también a partir de quienes nos oprimen.
Because this is not just our problem. This problem has to be resolved also from those who are oppressing us.
Entonces, no bailamos para complacer un público. Bailamos para contarle al mundo lo que nos sucede y cómo la sociedad tiene que transformar esta manera de tratarnos y de darnos el lugar en la sociedad que no merecemos.
So we don't dance in order to please an audience. We dance to tell the world what it is that we need, what changes need to happen, and how we can work together.
Es a través de las obras, entonces, que hacemos en Sankofa y a través de la militancia que nosotros enfrentamos este racismo sistémico.
So it's through our works that we strive and we fight to end this structural racism.
And in this struggle, who are your allies and how can we support you?
Entonces, cuéntanos quiénes son sus aliados y cómo podemos ayudarlos.
Bueno, durante 23 años nosotros hemos tenido muchos aliados a nivel personal, pero también a nivel institucional. Voy a nombrar algunos de ellos.
In the 23 years that the company has existed, we have had many allies, many institutions and organizations who are our allies, but also individuals. And I'm going to name a few of them.
La Fundación Manos Visibles de la exministra Paula Marcela Moreno nos ha permitido trabajar con grupos juveniles como Pacific Dance o Jóvenes Creadores del Chocó.
The organization Manos Visibles, or Visible Hands, which is led by the former Secretary of Culture, Paula Marcela Moreno. This organization allows us to work with young groups of people like Jóvenes Creadores del Chocó and Pacific Dance.
En procesos de creación que han sido también en convenio con el Ministerio de Cultura.
And processes of creation that are also done alongside with the Department of Culture.
El Centro de Estudios Afrodiaspóricos ICESI, en cabeza de la doctora Aurora Vergara, también ha sido un gran aliado para nuestras luchas.
Another institution is the Center for Afro-Diasporic Studies, led by the Dr. Aurora Vergara.
El doctor Carlos Correa Angulo, investigador adjunto de la Universidad de Manchester, con quien colaboramos en la investigación de prácticas artísticas antirracistas en Brasil, Argentina y Colombia.
Also, Dr. Carlos Correa Angulo, who's an adjunct researcher at the University of Manchester, with whom we are collaborating in a research currently investigating artistic anti-racist practices in Brazil, Colombia, and Argentina.
Y que fue la persona que hizo y que me apoyó para hacer la carta que enviamos de reclamo a la Universidad de Antioquia.
This person, Dr. Carlos Correa Angulo, was actually the person who helped me write the letter in response to the University of Antioquia.
Y ustedes hoy se unen a esta lucha y nos respaldan, amplificando nuestra voz y dando a conocer lo que nos sucede.
And you today are, by giving us this stage, are also amplifying our voice and giving us immense support.
Porque nos permiten que nuestro lema esté vivo y es bailamos más que para ser vistos, para ser escuchados.
You allow us to keep our slogan alive, which is we dance more than to be seen, to be heard.
Rafael, when I listen to your struggle, I think all those of the African descent can feel your pain.
Rafael, cuando oigo hablar de su lucha, siento que los demás afrodescendientes sentimos tu dolor.
Porque somos comunidad.
Because we are a community.
And I feel like when I listen to you, I can see that those who've been muted because we don't want to frighten those who are in power. It's the arts that gives us a chance to express that pain, struggle, and resistance.
Y siento que los que han sido silenciados porque no quieren enfrentar a los que están en poder, porque tienen miedo de ese enfrentamiento, que a través del arte es como podemos expresarnos.
Totalmente de acuerdo. I agree.
So during this pandemic and like this cracking open of this global anti-Blackness reckoning, I saw that you started to create a new work called Black Voices. Why was this important for you to move into this direction at this time?
Entonces, durante la pandemia y con esta explosión global contra los negros, usted empezó a crear una nueva obra llamada Black Voices. ¿Por qué fue importante para usted ir en esta dirección en este momento?
Sí, exactamente por eso que acabas de decir, Mark, y es que el dolor de la gente negra lo siente la gente negra alrededor del mundo.
As you just said, Mark, the pain of a Black community is felt all over the world by the rest of the Black community.
Miren, gracias a un proyecto local que nació aquí en Medellín durante la pandemia,
Thanks to a local program that was born here in the city of Medellin during the pandemic,
con los bailarines de la familia Sankofa, incluyendo la compañía Wangari de la maestra Indira Perea,
with the dancers, the Sankofa dancers, and also the dancers of another company, Wandari, of Indira Perea, who's also one of our dancers.
nosotros pudimos llegar a los oídos de la comunidad afrodescendiente en Boston, gracias al Celebrity Series de Boston y de la agencia de representación El Management.
With this work, and thanks to Celebrity Series in Boston, we were able to reach the Black community in Boston.
E insertarnos, introducirnos en el proceso norteamericano, las vidas negras importan.
And in this way, we were able to enter the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States.
Para nosotros tiene un gran sentido, porque Estados Unidos es una potencia a la cual todo el mundo escucha.
And this makes a lot of sense to us because the United States is a world power that everyone pays attention to.
Y las personas negras norteamericanas están reclamando el derecho a estar vivas, a no ser asesinadas.
The Black people in the United States are reclaiming their right to live, to not be murdered.
Mientras nosotros veíamos con horror la desdichada muerte del señor Floyd,
While we desperately watched in horror the death of Mr. Floyd,
aquí en Colombia, en un pueblo muy pequeño en Puerto Tejada, era también cegada la vida por la policía de Anderson Arboleda.
here in Colombia, in a very small town of Afro-Colombians called Puerto Tejada, the life of Anderson Arboleda was also struck down by Colombian police.
Entonces es la misma suerte la que corremos los afrodescendientes alrededor del mundo.
So it's the same story that is lived by all Afro-descendants all over the world.
Y por eso para nosotros, para Sankofa, es tan importante podernos unir con movimientos globales que luchen a favor de la vida de los afrodescendientes.
This is why it's so important to Sankofa to unite globally with other communities so we can fight together.
Y que el arte se convierta en ese puente y en ese motor que nos ayude a sentirnos hermanos y que nos ayude a lidiar con la desgracia que nos acorrala todos los días.
So we attempt to use our art as a bridge and as a motor to keep us going and to unite us globally and hopefully reach a solution.
So what I'm hearing is that you are connecting your struggle with the struggles of other aspirant diaspora around the world. And I see that it's really clear that this is what connects us together.
Entonces lo que estoy escuchando es que estás tratando de crear esta conexión con otros grupos de la diáspora africana en el mundo.
So where do you see the future of dance intersecting with this global movement?
¿Dónde ves el futuro de la danza y cómo se conecta con el resto del mundo?
Sí, yo siento que el futuro de la danza es seguir luchando por ese lugar político en el que corresponde.
I believe that dance is the way to try and reach to that political body.
Es decir, cuando nosotros bailamos, estamos contando nuestra historia, nuestros sueños, nuestros deseos de construir un mundo mejor.
When we dance, we're expressing our dreams, our desires, where we want to end up.
Estamos demostrando la humanidad que se nos niega todos los días.
We are demonstrating the humanity that is negated every day.
Nosotros hemos trabajado con grupos como Sansacroma en Brasil,
We have worked with groups like Sansacroma in Brazil,
o por ejemplo las coreografías o las películas de mi maestra Irene Tazambedo en Burkina Faso.
also the choreographies and films directed by my teacher, Irene Tazambedo from Burkina Faso,
O la maestra Alejandra Gido de la compañía Teatro en Sepia de Buenos Aires y su obra No es país para negros.
or Alejandra Gido's company, Teatro Sepia in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And their
Incluso-
work, No es país para negros, not a country for Black people.
O incluso el indígena Haider Esbel con su obra La guerra de los Canaímes.
Also, I'd like to mention Haider Esbel in his work A Guerra dos Canaimes, or The War of the Canaimes, from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Haider is an indigenous visual artist from the Mapudungun community in the Amazon.
Y a lo que voy con eso es que el lugar de la danza es conectarse con otras luchas artísticas que puedan librar la emancipación, que puedan abrir caminos para que todos podamos tener la vida digna que nos merecemos.
So what we're trying through dance is to create this connection, to work together so we can reach that emancipation finally.
We've seen over the course of the past year that activism can take many forms. What other artistic tools are available for dancers to confront racism?
¿Qué otras herramientas artísticas hay disponibles para que los bailarines sigan confrontando el racismo?
Bueno, nosotros recientemente montamos la obra y estamos en proceso de crear la obra completa de Detrás del Sur, Danzas para Manuel, que es un homenaje al escritor afrodescendiente Manuel Zapata Olivella.
Recently and currently, we have been working on a new piece of work called Detrás del Sur, Danzas para Manuel, Behind the South, Dances for Manuel, an author.
Es un homenaje al maestro y al escritor Manuel Zapata Olivella, un escritor afrodescendiente.
This is a homage. We're paying honor with this piece of work to the author Manuel Zapata Olivera, who's an Afro-descendant author in Colombia.
Estamos basados en su libro Changó, el Gran Putas, que es un libro insigne de la lucha antirracista en nuestro país.
We're mainly focusing on one particular book, Changó el Gran Putas, which tells the epic story of the African diaspora in the Americas.
Entonces yo creo que, por ejemplo, una de las herramientas es la escritura, la literatura. Esta también viene a alimentar la escritura corporal que nosotros hacemos cuando estamos bailando.
So I believe that one of the tools we're able to use, we should use, is literature. Literature is another form of expression, and it can help us with creating literature in our bodies.
La conexión definitivamente con otras disciplinas artísticas enriquece nuestra manera de crear ante el mundo y para nosotros mismos.
Definitely using other styles of art is only going to enrich our own works.
Well, thank you, Rafael. So for those of you out there who want more information about Black Voices and how you can bring this program to your community, please wait until the end of this program for more information. As we speak about the programs that you offer, I want to share with the folks who are visiting with us today a video that shows the workshop that you offer for some students here in the Lehigh Valley. We had students from Moravian College, Muhlenberg College, DeSales University, Cedar Crest College, and the Charter Arts High School all immerse themselves with your workshop on Afro-Colombian dance. Let's take a look of a short clip of this workshop.
Y esperamos vernos presencialmente pronto.
Hope that you enjoyed it, and we hope to be able to see you in person soon.
Well, great. One of the things we want to do is be able to share with you some questions that we gathered from some of the students that took your workshop and also viewed your performance, your virtual performance. So the first question that we have is, this piece, City of Others, showed great unity through conflict and isolation, as if the solo dancer was expressing the thoughts of the whole group. How did you create the visible connection and trust between the dancers?
Ahora queremos compartir algunas de las preguntas de estos estudiantes que vieron la obra La ciudad de los otros. Esta obra demostró mucha unidad a través del conflicto y soledad, como si el solista estuviera expresando los pensamientos del grupo. ¿Cómo creó esa conexión y confianza tan visibles en los bailarines?
Es una pregunta que agradezco,
I am grateful for this question,
porque me permite hablar de la humanidad y de la sensibilidad y de la inteligencia que tiene cada uno de los artistas de Sankofa.
because it allows me to talk about the humanity, the sensibility, and the artistry of each of the dancers in our company.
No puedo dejar de mencionar que esa obra fue creada en el año 2010 en conmemoración de la abolición de la esclavitud en Colombia.
I have to mention that this piece of work was created in 2010 to celebrate an anniversary of the abolition of slavery in Colombia.
Entonces, lo que hicimos fue reunirnos para pensar cómo esa esclavitud aún hoy en día nos sigue atacando.
So we got together to talk about how slavery today is still affecting us.
Y resulta que las historias de vida de cada uno de los participantes se conectaba con las de los otros.
And it turned out that the life events of all of the dancers was interconnected somehow.
Entonces, esa tristeza y esa soledad se convertía comunitaria para encontrar un lugar de sanación.
So those events and that loneliness ended up connecting us and showing us how there is a connection and similarities between us.
Y esa sanación, entonces, nos permite que el bailarín en el escenario no esté solo y que esté contando una historia con el resto de sus compañeros, una historia sólida que tiene que ver con su propia historia de vida.
This healing process in turn allowed us to say that a dancer, even if they are a soloist on stage, they will be expressing as a group or what the group has been feeling or went through.
Estoy muy agradecido que este o esta estudiante haya hecho esta pregunta, porque siento que se conectó, a pesar de que la viera en un video, con la historia real de cada uno de nosotros.
Again, I'm very grateful to this question. Thank you, the student, whoever you are, for asking this question, because it tells me that you really connected with our piece, with our dance, even though you were watching it on screen.
Great. Let me share with you another question that we have here. In addition to the many layers of movement and blending dance styles, there is also an integration of live music and interactive vocals. What was the main inspiration behind the many components of this performance?
Y otra pregunta de otro estudiante. Además de las diferentes capas en los movimientos y mezcla de estilos de danza, también hay una integración de música y canto en vivo. ¿Cuál fue su mayor inspiración detrás de los muchos componentes de la obra?
Ok, la mayor inspiración es reconocer los saberes y conocimientos que cada uno de los bailarines traen de sus territorios a la ciudad de Medellín.
The biggest inspiration and what I recognize is what each of the dancers bring to the company, to the dances from their own territories, the territories that they come from.
Porque esto quiere decir que enfrentan la ciudad de Medellín a través de su propia cultura.
Because this means that they are confronting the city of Medellin with their own culture.
Y esa cultura es capaz de darles la fuerza para enfrentar dignamente a una sociedad que muchas veces lo rechaza.
And this culture, their culture, is what's going to give them the strength to confront a society that is denying them a lot.
Entonces es imposible contar la historia, contar una biografía nuestra sin acudir a esas manifestaciones artísticas y espirituales que cada uno de ellos posee.
So it's impossible to tell our story without using those traditions that each of them brought, that each of them grew up with.
Y es por eso que en la puesta en escena entonces encuentran cantos y músicas tradicionales que tienen que ver con los territorios afrocolombianos, aunque estemos en la ciudad de Medellín.
And this is why in the piece that you watch, you find songs and live music that comes from the territories that each of our dancers come from.
One more student question. As the artistic director, has your choreography for the company brought about personal realizations of your own cultural identity and made it easier to connect with that identity?
Y otra pregunta de un estudiante. Como director, ¿la coreografía ha influido en su identidad cultural? ¿Le ha ayudado a sentirse más conectado a esa identidad?
Sí, definitivamente. Es un regalo que nos da la vida, es una bendición.
Yes, definitely is a blessing that I feel I have been given.
Porque esto lo que nos permite es ser hombres y mujeres afrodescendientes conectados con lo afrodiaspórico.
Because it allows us as men and women of African descent to connect with that diaspora.
A sentir orgullo por nosotros mismos y por nuestras herencias culturales.
To feel proud of our heritage and our traditions.
También a estudiar nuestras propias epistemologías.
And to be able to study our own epistemologies.
Y a continuar un mundo en el que no tenemos vergüenza de ser negros.
And to continue being in a world where we don't have to feel shame for being Black.
Entonces, ser bailarín y coreógrafo al lado de personas humanas tan valiosas, claro que me ha permitido vincularme con mi cultura de maneras incluso inesperadas.
So being a choreographer who's able to work with these dancers allows me to join into a culture, into a society that I didn't have a chance to before.
Cuando un joven de Tumaco, o de Cali, o del Chocó, o de Cartagena, o de las islas, nos comunicamos en Sankofa para aprender esos lugares que tenemos y esas vivencias de vida que tenemos en diferentes territorios colombianos, eso lo que hace es multiplicar la fuerza de nuestra cultura en Colombia.
When a dancer from Cali, Tumaco, Las Islas, and other territories, when we come together in Sankofa and work together and share our traditions and our cultures, it allows us to become stronger.
Rafael, I can sit here all day talking with you. I feel more connected to my African diaspora neighbors in the South. I'm so grateful for your time. Monica, thank you for being here with us to share with the rest of the folks here, the translation for Rafael. Dr. Jones, thank you also. And I would like to take this moment to thank everyone who participated in this discussion and our technical team for producing this webinar. Zoellner Arts Center had originally booked Rafael and Sankofa Danzafro to perform City of Others in Baker Hall, where I am right now. However, the pandemic changed those plans, and for this instant, it made it better. It gave us a platform for us to bring Rafael's story, Sankofa's story to the globe with the partnership with the UN. A local performance turned into a worldwide conversation in partnership with Lehigh University's UN program, together with the United Nations Department of Global Communications. It is important to address issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in order to make progress against systemic racism and oppression. I hope you will now continue the conversation in your community. Thank you for joining us today.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.